Welcome to Grow Getters with host Davis Michaelsen, who's looking for and discovering agriculture's most inventive side hustles. Grow Getters is sponsored by BASF. Get 0% financing on their top fungicides today. Talk to your retailer to get started.
Well, hey everybody, welcome to Grow Getters. I am Davis Michaelsen. Glad that you are here with us for this great story. We're reaching clear out to some farmers in Idaho. We are well outside the Corn Belt here, folks, and I'm really looking forward to the conversation. Diversity of crops, diversity in soils. I'm anxious to unpack some of this stuff because in this story there is a real passion, a real heart for stewardship with the next generations in mind. As we go out to Idaho, we'll unpack the story as we go here. Let me start here. Nate Riggers, his wife Christine, and their son Christopher run Clearwater Farms in north central Idaho. Top producer finalists in 2022. The Riggers family operates the fifth generation Dryland grain farm in Idaho's fertile Camas Prairie. I should circle that. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing Camas.
Camas
Prairie. It's been in the family since 1895 when German immigrant Friedrich Riggers, that's Nate's great-grandfather, paid $1 for the land and homesteaded Clearwater Farms in Idaho. Let me bring in Nate and Christopher Riggers. Fellas, welcome to Grow Getters. Thanks for being here today. Nate, I want to start with you as we just establish some of your conventional operations, and then we'll get on to some of the extras here. But tell us about your farm. What's the story? What are you up to these days?
Well, I returned to the farm in 1991. As you said, my great-grandfather homesteaded in 1895, and I had my grandfather and a couple brothers that farmed through the Great Depression and through World War II, and then a lot of my dad's cousins farmed, and so there were 4 or 5 Riggers operations that kind of came off of great-grandfather Frederick, including my father. And he retired in 1991. My older brother was farming with him, and that's when my wife and I moved home. And I've been farming now for, I guess it'd be about 34 years.
Oh, wow.
And
hey, the mail's here.
In 2017, Christopher and his wife Natalie moved home. Christopher was working in the Midwest, and he became my partner in 2019 when my older brother Steve retired. So that's kind of the chain of command from my great-grandfather homesteading in the days of the plow and a horse to Christopher now running the farm and managing day-to-day operations today.
Excellent. Well, let's talk about that, Christopher. When you were growing up, and maybe even as you graduated high school and were thinking about what you wanted to do with your life, were you thinking that you're going to want to come back to the farm? Did you stay on the farm? What does that time period in your life look like?
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of farm kids, I think as early as I can remember, I wanted to, farm, and that's just, I knew that's what I wanted to do. And my mom and dad growing up really kind of pushed me to get out of my comfort zone after high school and maybe look out of state to go to college. And that was a rule of theirs was, definitely had to go to college and then work somewhere off the farm for at least a couple of years before, I'd be allowed to move back and join if that was still what I wanted to do. Yeah. So I decided on going actually back out to the Midwest and went to Purdue in Indiana and got my undergraduate degree there. Met a Indiana gal that ended up getting married to, and worked for a couple of years in the grain industry while my wife was getting her master's degree from Purdue. And about 2 years after graduation, Dad called and said that his brother, my uncle, was ready to retire and, wanted to see if I still wanted to move home and see if Natalie wanted to move back out to Idaho. And we decided that we did. And so in 2017, that's what we did. We moved back out to Idaho and joined the farm.
Excellent. Excellent. We'll talk more about that time period there and how you emerged as something of a leader there on the farm after having returned there. I'm just curious. We've got farm cred established plenty here, but I'm guessing between the two of you, somebody's probably got a pocket knife on them right now. Either of you got a pocket knife on you right now?
I don't, sadly.
Okay. How are you going to get out of a nuclear submarine? Yeah. Well, very good. Very good. I want to talk to you about biologically diverse soils. Nate, Chris, whoever, I might throw this to Nate here. You call it the cornerstone of your success. You treat your soils as a living organism. Talk to me about biologically diverse soils. Why is it so important? Why is it a cornerstone of your operation?
Well, so our region and the greater Palouse region that reaches into Washington and Central Oregon is rain-fed. We prefer that term to dryland farming. Rain-fed, so capturing and utilizing all the moisture we can get, whether that's snow or rain, is important. My brother and I, back in the mid-90s, early 90s, were starting to look at no-till farming, and partly for increased efficiency, but also we were starting to learn about soil health and what reducing or eliminating tillage could do for soil structure. And so we began that transition, and in a few years completed it in the late 90s to where we parked our moldboard plow. And we immediately just started seeing the benefits of snow trap, of better soil structure, allowing better infiltration of the water we get, and just increasing the soil bank of water that we had to grow crops. And we just saw a change in our soil. And so I think that experience just has made us very sensitive to trying to maintain soil health. And we do that primarily with reduction in tillage and growing a diverse complement of crops to stimulate the soil biology.
Yeah. Well, and Chris, let me ask you sort of about that, because you've got some acres that you lease, as I understand. Are you able to sort of carry those practices over onto ground that you lease as well, or do you sort of take what you can get?
Yeah, we do it across all our acres. The majority of our acres are leased.
Mhm.
And, in our region, leases are, because of our crop mix and rotation in the Northwest, leases are longer than what you'll see in the Midwest, typically, 5 to 10 years most times. And so that allows us to, kind of play the long game in terms of soil health and rotation and that sort of thing. And it's a great benefit. And we're very thankful, to have that ability and allow us to farm the way that we do.
Well, and it allows you to be nimble too when you guys grow all kinds of stuff over there. And I would imagine that you've found certain soils are better for certain things. Maybe we go on this plot over here for this or that. I don't know if that's the case or not, but it does sound like you've got some pretty decent dirt to choose from there.
Yeah, it's, can vary quite a bit. From, just in the radius diameter of our farm.
Yeah.
And, a lot of the legumes and canola and small grains are pretty interchangeable on the ground that we farm, but we find that like bluegrass especially fits really well on more heavy clay soils and lower pH soils and ground that, the cereals and legumes don't do as well on.
Mhm.
On average, the bluegrass tends to thrive. It matures very early. And, that's the thing with the Northwest, or difference, I should say, from the Midwest, is we get most of our precipitation in the winter and early spring. And then by about June, most years shuts off. And, we don't expect much, if any, rain in July or August. And if we do get it, it's a definite blessing. But, so we have to kind of plan our rotation and just farming practices around maximizing our early season moisture, with earlier maturing crops and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Nate, you've been in the biz a while. How do you like this year's snowpack? How do you like your moisture chances for the summertime?
I think snowpack is above average in the Western U.S. I think the Sierras are catching up. Idaho looks good. We were warm enough in November, December here that we got most of our precipitation is rain. Our farm is at 3,000 to 4,000 feet above sea level, which sounds high, but we had a little abnormally warm November, December. So we had a lot of rain, whereas the mountains got a lot of snowpack just a few thousand feet above us. So I think we look pretty good. I think our precipitation this winter has been average, maybe a little better, but it certainly hasn't been a bad winter.
Okay. Well, I'm sure glad to hear that. I want to talk about Coldstream Malt and Grain Company here coming up next. And Chris, I'll probably throw it to you for the interrogation there. But first, I feel like there should be a song like right here. Maybe you'll recognize where I stole this from. It's Nate and Chris, Clearwater Farms, custom farm and land management. Sustainable productivity so the next generation grows. Closed loop production and pampered soil, it's a salmon safe waterway. Certified and biodiverse, and they're farming in Idaho. Wah, wah. Can you name the tune?
Dad might be able to.
You got it? Garth Brooks Rodeo and the Holiday Rodeo. I heard that and Idaho just lends itself so well.
Well done.
I was expecting a little Creedence Clearwater revival because of our farm name.
Oh, of course.
You threw me for a loop.
I'll get my people on that. Somebody's going to get fired, Nate. Yes, thank you for bringing it up.
I saw Billy Joel live in November, and you're every bit as good. So.
Oh, now you. I don't know about that. I saw Barry Manilow, and I was humbled. I'll tell you what.
We will be right back after a word from our sponsor.
We can't control the weather. We can't affect the global demand for corn and soy. We can't even fix that piece of equipment you swear is still good if you just have the right part. But BASF can offer you 0% financing on our proven, consistent performing fungicides. Our grower finance program is here to help you maximize your yield potential and savings with 0% APR on some of the highest performing fungicides available until March 15th, 2025. Because now more than ever, every dollar counts, and you can't beat 0% financing on innovative corn and soybean fungicides like Revitech fungicide, Revilock fungicide, and Veltima fungicide. Keep more in your wallet while improving your yield potential. Talk to your BASF retailer today about the Grower Finance Program to lock in 0% APR. Subject to credit approval, terms and conditions. See BASF Grower Finance Program for details. Always read and follow label directions.
I want to talk about Coldstream Malt and Grain Company. Chris, what is this? What does it do? What's the point?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of falls in with the theme of, everything else we strive for on our farm and just adding diversity through a lot of different ways. It's a partnership we formed with a neighbor of ours on the Northern Palouse in 2019-20. And barley is a crop that excels in our area. It's a quick maturing crop. It's good for our ground. It's good for our other crops in the rotation, breaks up disease cycles and allows us to use some different chemistry, things like that. But we haven't historically had a great market for it in our area. We're a little bit geographically kind of detached from stuff. We're not real close to any interstates and big cities. Yeah. And so, that's where the malt houses are and breweries. And so it's been, challenging, I should say, to have a competitive market for growing malt barley. So we, went down this road with our partner to try to develop our own market and add value, throughout the supply chain any way we could to make barley a profitable crop for us.
Yeah. Nate, your family's been farming for all those generations. Have you always taken the same sort of diversified approach with a bunch of different crops going and all sorts of things? Was it always like that, sir?
This region has historically been fairly diversified. Historically, it's had a lot of pulse crop acres, peas and lentils. Malting barley was a pretty big crop in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. It started to we started to lose acres to irrigated production in other parts of the northern states. Um, soft white winter wheat is what is the bread and butter. It pays the bills. And we also grow Kentucky bluegrass turfgrass seed. And so it's always been a fairly diversified cropping region. We're trying to bring the malt barley back and keep it as a more stable, resilient part of our business model. Whereas it's really lost a lot of acres in this region over the past 10, 20 years.
So, Chris, who are you marketing to? I'm thinking about this malt barley. Who is your target audience?
Well, we sell to some small craft malt houses. They're called, that kind of started developing in the late teens. The 2000s, 2018, 19 over the country. We've sold to a couple of those that are in the Northwest. And then we're, working with them to sell our own brand of finished malt. They malt it for us. We sell our own brand of finished malt to breweries, craft breweries in the Northwest.
And another thing that's very interesting about your operation there, I was just checking my notes here. Salmon Safe. You're a certified salmon safe farm. I haven't heard either one of you mention growing salmon there, and yet somehow you're a salmon safe farm. Nate, tell us about the salmon thing.
Salmon Safe is a third-party certification program that my brother Steve and I first pursued in I think the year 2000, 2001, when identity preserve farm to table was first becoming being talked about in agriculture. And what the Northwest has a lot of salmon habitat in the rivers and streams throughout Oregon, Washington, Idaho. And what Salmon Safe certification is an inspection of your farm by a third-party auditor that verifies that your farming practices enhance and benefit salmon spawning habitat in streams. And by going through that audit and getting a passing grade, then you can use the Salmon Safe logo and that certification in marketing crops and grain to consumers and businesses that may want to, or in our case, craft beer, breweries that may want to show that story to their customers.
Yeah, that's terrific. And the way that conservation, sustainability, all of those sorts of things run as a stream through your operation now. It's great to see, because those practices definitely do pay dividends. I'm thinking especially in soil health there. There was a time... Yeah, go ahead.
What's interesting is my brother and I were about 20 years too early. We struggled at the time. We couldn't find small malt houses to malt the barley. And we couldn't really get our foot in the door because we didn't have the contacts. We couldn't get our foot in the door with a malt house and craft breweries. I think at the time they were called microbreweries 20 years ago.
Yeah.
We had breweries that were interested, but we just couldn't complete the chain. And then when Christopher came back to the operation, and we had this partner who did have some connections in the industry, Christopher and our partner were able to complete that and actually get the business off the ground and going.
Wow. Okay. I do want to talk about Christopher's role in the business there, because shortly after he moved back to the farm, I think, Nate, you got some frightening, concerning news. Your priorities got reshuffled for you. I would argue probably against your will. We're going to come back and talk about that right after just one more song. There's just one more. I got to get it out. Clearwater Farms in North Central ID. Since 1895, the family's been hard at work. Clearwater Farms. Who is this Ida? And did she ever shovel? Various barleys, canola, and grass. They sow the seeds of stewardship. The future looks bright. Clearwater Farms on the grow. An ode to Clearwater Farms. Chris, at some point, Pop got sick. You had come back in 2017. So you, as I understand it, were nearby, close at hand, to be able to help out. I'm not sure who wants to tell the story here. Nate, maybe I'll throw it over to you to talk to us about what happened, and clearly it left a hole in the operation there. Let's start there.
So at the beginning of 2019, my brother started his official retirement, and we started a buyout process with him. And by fall of 19, I was experiencing some back pain that you normally attribute it to, a disc or something.
Sure.
Muscle spasms, whatever common back pain is, but it just got progressively worse. And in December, I was diagnosed with multiple myeloma, which is a cancer of your plasma cells in your bone marrow.
Oh, wow.
And it typically presents as back pain. Mm-hmm. And so luckily I was diagnosed fairly quickly and started treatment in January, and had a really good successful treatment through the spring and summer, and came out really pretty healthy out of the whole thing. I'm 5 years cancer free.
Good.
And looking back, I'm just glad that Christopher had been back in the operation for 2 years, because my brother had just retired and was practically moved away. I mean, he still had a house, his original house, but they had moved a couple 100 miles away or 100 miles away.
Yeah.
And my dad was completely retired and living in a retirement home with my mom 50 miles away. Mm-hmm. So if Christopher hadn't been home, it would have really been a burden to keep things going. But, he stepped in and we didn't miss a beat that year. And it really just kind of cemented or maybe sped up a little bit his process to being in charge, chief operations officer, and, really CEO. But it was surprisingly smooth, and it worked.
Christopher, did it, from your perspective, was it smooth? Was it comfortable? I mean, the learning curve for you got steep in a hurry there, didn't it?
Yeah. We had a really good growing season that year. We had some of the best crops we ever had, thanks to Mother Nature. So that always makes things easier, when Mother Nature cooperates. But, we also just have a great team, and we had a great team in 2020. And, thanks to Dad and Steve, and the way they had developed the farm up to that point. And so, I put it all on the people that we work with, the team that we had on the farm, the folks that we rely on outside of the farm, were just played a big help and made things, like Dad said, it just felt like we didn't miss a beat. It was definitely uncomfortable at times, just unknown things, and not having Dad around, like he normally would be, certainly made things uncomfortable. But it was, like Dad was saying, it was great. It turned out great, and it really accelerated my growth in the farm and management ability, and just leadership of the farm. And I think it was a blessing in disguise, to be honest.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It does sound like Providence had positioned you ahead of time there, so you at least weren't coming in completely cold to the situation there.
Yeah.
Where can we find out more information about your operation and about Coldstream Malt and Grain?
Well, we have a couple websites, but we love just talking with folks across the country more than anything. Uh-huh. A big part of my development and growth, and Dad's as well, was just friends that we've made in the Midwest, farmer friends, through different programs, Top Producer, TPAP down in Texas, just a lot of different things over the years. And those are relationships that have really, as much as anything, I think have helped get our farm to where it is. And so, people that I meet, I always encourage, hey, if you ever have questions about something you're doing yourself, or, if you ever think there's something we might be able to help you with or share or just talk about, I just want to talk to people. I give my phone number, reach out, email me, let's get together. I like when I'm in Indiana visiting family and friends, I try to go visit as many farms as I can of, neighbors and friends. And it's just invaluable experience.
Sounds to me like you got the farming fever there, Christopher.
Yeah, you could probably say that.
Yeah. Well, Nate, I want to lean into you as we get ready to. I'm going to cut you loose here pretty quick. Talk to the other growers out there. I just wonder what your biggest piece of advice to other farmers are, from your experience. You know, what's the most important message that you think other farmers need to hear? It's a tough one.
Well, if I look back on my career as a partner with my brother and now with my son, we've always tried to maintain a learning culture, never be satisfied.
Ooh, that's good.
That you have the answers.
Yep.
And surround yourself with great people, great employees and team members, and encourage them to challenge your conventional beliefs, and to always seek continuous improvement, and just never be satisfied with the status quo in terms of performance.
That is terrific. Christopher, you're going to wind up getting the last word out of this deal here. I'm just curious, not that you don't already have plenty going on. Have you got anything in the wings there? Big plans? I mean, what's next over at Clearwater Farms?
Oh man, this year it's kind of just to hunker down and survive here, right? I think it's that way for a lot of folks. So we're just really driving down on costs and efficiencies and marketing and trying to be the absolute best we can in all areas. And at the same time, like Dad said, continuous growth, continuous improvement for all of us. And that's something we really put a lot of importance on. So.
Absolutely. Well, Nate and Christopher Riggers from Clearwater Farms in Idaho, Coldstream Malt and Grain Company. Man, you guys have an enviable operation going on there. We really appreciate you taking some time to outline what you got going on clear out there in Idaho. Nate, Christopher, thanks so much. We appreciate you.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for the opportunity, Davis. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, production support provided by Jack Heffron and Zach Zingula. Find Grow Getters on Farm Journal's YouTube channel or listen to it wherever you find your favorite podcasts. So for Farm Journal Studios, I'm your pal, Davis Michaelsen. Thanks for tuning in, and hey, let's get out there and grow get 'em, everybody.
Grow Getters is a production of Farm Journal Studios, where no one grows alone.